Okay, thanks for us. Good morning, everyone. My name is Erwin Sotiri. I'm a crypto and digital lawyer from Luxembourg. Um, but whether you are a partner in an accounting firm or in-house counsel, I suspect you have experienced the tokenization moment, which is that specific point in a client meeting where someone mentions on-chain asset representation or distributed ledger governance, and everyone in the room nods with serene confidence of people who will absolutely Google it the second the door closes. Uh, for years, the tokenization was treated as an abstract curiosity, was more reserved for as a playground for developers in hoodies or something adjacent to magic internet coins. Well, that did not belong in a serious board meeting. Back then, we could afford to dismiss it as a passing trend, but we cannot do that anymore in 2026, not because the technology suddenly became virtuous, but because the market has started to use it for things professionals actually care about, which are settlements, ownerships, enforceable rights, and regulatory perimeter. I guess many of you are from Generation X, but maybe before, maybe after. But for those who are from Gen X, you grew up in an analog world and somehow ended up running institutions that now pretend that they were born digital. Uh, you have been doing the unglamorous work of bridging generations without demanding applauses or commemorative trophies. But there is one truth that we can admit in public. I know that we all, whatever the generation is, we keep a small shrine to the analog gods in every office. And and I know that in every office there is one sacred object that converts clean digital reality to something we can hold, sign, stamp, and file. And I'm talking about the printer. And next to it, there is usually a portal that brings the analog back to the digital universe, and that is the scanner. Tokenization is the same principle applied to assets rather than paperwork. It takes something that exists in the real world, a share, a bond, a fund unit, a receivable, a piece of real estate, even a carbon credit, and it creates a digital representation that systems can recognize, track, and transfer. You will hear very often the abbreviations RWA, which means real world assets. I suggest you learn it now because it will be dropped into conversation as if it were self-explanatory, which is the natural way professional jargon reproduces. Now, one precision point, because lawyers and accountants are professionally incapable of living without at least one. Tokenization is not merely just a scan of real-world assets. A scan gives you a digital image of an analog reality. Tokenization aims to produce something more that is closer to a registrable, transferable representation of rights. That usefulness is not the picture you obtain in a digital format. It is the operating layer that enables who owns what can be transferred, when it can be transferred, and what happens when certain events occur. That operating layer is where the smart contracts comes in. If tokenization is basically the scanner plus a digital register, the smart contract is the workflow engine. It enforces the rules that were previously handled by people, emails, reconciliation, and when things went wrong, polite threats on a letterhead. And that is the moment where many discussions become unnecessarily mystical. So let's just keep it grounded. A smart contract is not smart in the way a lawyer or an accountant are smart. It does not interpret purpose, it does not understand context, and it does not negotiate. It executes predefined logic consistently and at scale. That consistency, sorry, is exactly why it can reduce operational friction and also why it can fail in every foreseeable ways if the underlying legal governance design is sloppy. So the core question for today is tokenization real? The quick answer is yes, it is. The better question would be, what kind of legal object have you created? Who is responsible for it? And what regulatory regime does it trigger? Well, there is exactly where the transatlantic divergence becomes interesting. In the EU, the regulatory approach is increasingly constitutional in style. MiCA does not simply regulate isolated products, it builds a market framework. It contains categories, authorization gates, conduct rules, etc. In the US, the Genius Act takes a more instrument-focused approach for stablecoins. It targets the issuer and the reserve, and then it uses the market access constraint to discipline the distribution. If that sounds abstract, it becomes very practical very quickly, because under both regimes, a compliance is no longer a slogan you declare and move from it on. Uh, it has become now the set of operational and documentary choices that decide whether your token behaves like a payment instrument, a regulated financial product, or a compliance incident that is waiting to be picked up by a journalist. So here's how we'll proceed. First, we will define what is being regulated, because half of the confusion in this crypto space comes from people using the same word to mean different legal things. Then we will look at who may issue, what reserves and redemption actually mean in legal terms, and why distribution and marketing have become regulated services. Finally, we will translate into the practical playbook for structuring and supervising tokenized instruments across the EU and the US. Right. With that out of the way, let us start with taxonomy, because regulation always begins by naming the beast. So first we have payment tokens. I'm sorry, I completely forgot the slides. So for those of you who are actually following with the slides, we should be right here. So first we have the tokens, which are synonymous of cryptocurrencies and used as a means of value transfer. Second, we have utility tokens that provide digital access to an application or service. And finally, and most important for us, we have asset tokens representing debt or equity claims on the issuer, acting as digital version of equities, bonds, or derivatives. In 2025, we have also seen the rise of hybrid tokens, which might give you a voting right, a dividend, or an access to a gym all at once, of course, causing an absolute delight for the tax departments. Why does this matter to a professional advisor? Because tokenized systems improve three things that are core to our job: is traceability, transferability, and governance. Providing ownership of traditional uncertified securities often requires an evidence trail of an uninterrupted chain of assignments, which is frequently the missing piece. In a tokenized system, the ledger acts as the definitive source of truth. The buyer can have absolute certainty that the seller actually owns securities, reducing the risk of usual disasters in shareholder registers, and usually those are the things that keep us awake at night. What does it look in practice? So let's have a real use case. We are seeing fractional tokens that lower the entry barrier for prime real estate, allowing for stakes as small as 1,000 euros in properties that previously required millions. So imagine being able to sell fraction of a real estate deed across 27 European countries within hours, because the AML checks are run automatically through smart contracts. Under MiCA rules, these can be issued as asset reference tokens, or RT, with 100% reserve backing. This provides liquidity to a traditional illiquid asset class, though, to be honest, it won't help your client find any tenant faster. A strong theme in 2025 has been the tokenization of money market funds in the US. with asset under management rising above 8 billion. Traditional banks like Goldman Sachs have moved from sidelines to the arena, issuing crypto-based financial products for major players like the European Investment Bank and other players. Um, of course, at this point, everything sounds a bit futuristic, slightly over-engineered, and suspiciously similar to ideas that have been floating around for more than a decade now. And that skepticism is healthy. Most revolutions always arrive as PowerPoint presentation first, with the actual functioning infrastructure making making a fashionable entrance later, or perhaps with a cup of tea and a biscuit. What changes the temperature right now is not that tokenization suddenly became simpler. It actually did not. But now we have artificial intelligence that has made the surrounding ecosystem more legible and more usable. And yes, we are talking again about AI because what would be a webinar in 2026 without talking about AI? So first, AI tools. Sorry. Yeah. First, the AI tools are now reducing the black box feeling that has kept many professionals at arm's length with crypto assets. The investors, both retail and institutional, can now digest large volumes of market information and on-chain data far more quickly, sorry, which means participation becomes less about faith and more about analysis. When people can peek behind the curtain, they stop feeling like they are joining a secret club of tech wizards. And second, in the real world asset tokenization, the hardest part is often not the token. It is the valuation story. AI is able to process heterogeneous types of data, market trends, historical performance, macro indicators, transaction comparables, and produce structured valuation inputs faster than a human team can assemble them. That does not magically make valuation correct, but it can reduce the uncertainty premium, which is exactly what makes investors hesitate. And third, AI is lowering the operational friction that used to make cross-border token project feel like an endurance sport. Document parsing, close extraction, rule-based checks, ongoing monitoring, and workflow automation are not glamorous, but they are the difference between interesting concept and repeatable process. In other words, AI is tuning the compliance burden from hand-built, manual work into something that can be compared to industrial workflow. Fourth, as more physical and financial assets get tokenized, AI-enhanced provenance, fraud detection, and risk scoring make tokenized instruments behave like familiar financial products. When tokens have traceable stories, anomaly detection, and structured risk indicators, they start to look less like speculative objects and more like infrastructure. And the infrastructure, inconveniently, tends to attract serious attention. So finally, there is a cultural shift happening in parallel. More market participants are beginning to treat crypto not merely as a store of value or a payment rail, but as a base layer for AI native finance, meaning programmable assets sitting inside automatic decision systems. You do not have to agree with the narrative to notice its effect. It changes where capital, talent, and product development go. So the point of today is not to sell you a technology prophecy. It is to give you a clean mental model for why tokenization is reappearing in serious conversation now and why AI wave is acting like an accelerant. Once you see that, the legal and accounting questions become much easier to frame because they stop being a science fiction and start being professional design choices. So thank you for your time. If you leave with one upgrade, let it be this. When somehow says tokenization, you now have a mental model, not just a reflex to open a new tab in your browser. Thank you. So Ross, I'm done. If you want to bring us to the...
Ross, your sound isn't coming through Teams. No. Anyway, thank you for joining us and obviously doing the presentation, Erwin. We're now going to break out into open rooms, but I know a couple of you missed the photo when we did it the first time. So as it's everyone's favorite, I am going to take another one so that we can get everyone in. So if you could just give me a smile, and if you haven't got your cameras on, if you could just pop them on for a couple of moments so that we can take one more photo. Thank you. And in 3, 2, sorry, 1 second. And in 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms now so that everyone can go and have a chat with you. A couple of you will stay in the main room. Don't panic. We're using the main room as a breakout room as well. So if you don't move, it's because you're in there. I'm opening the rooms now. See you in a bit.
You want to put me in your room? Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes.
Yeah, okay, good. My microphone decided it wasn't going to work then, but hopefully it is now. So nice to see you. Patrick, Martin, I don't think or Joey, I don't think we've met in person before. Clinton, I know you very well. So Clinton, I'll start with you if that's okay, as I know you. Are you doing much in this space? Are you doing much in terms of tokenization? Did that ring true? Is this your area? I don't think I've ever asked you this question before.
I do a bit on it, mainly in the investment fund space. So we're quite heavily involved in advising on launching investment funds, mainly out of Cayman Islands or otherwise increasingly out of Hong Kong. And it was a hot trend probably a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. But what we're finding, certainly from a Hong Kong regulatory perspective, is that the idea that fund interests can be tokenized and then easily traded, it actually has a negative impact because of the investment manager's obligations under AMLO, KYC, those sorts of things. So unfortunately, what we are finding is that the regulations haven't quite caught up to the speed that tokenization is taking. It'll probably get there, and it was mentioned obviously on the talk just now that you can put on the token chain or the blockchain, whatever you want to call it, KYC and AML information. But unfortunately, yeah, from my regulatory perspective, it's not quite there just yet.
Okay. Joey, if I can bring you in, because you're a neighbour to Clinton. Clinton's, even though he's an Australian, he's working out of Hong Kong, whereas Joey, I know you're Chinese, so perhaps you just give us a different perspective from China.
Yes. First, I have to say that this tokenization is quite a new topic for me, because during my practice I have never been engaged in that area, but I just learned that from the since February 2026. That is quite new. That means this month, the China's central bank and 7 other governmental institutions just issued new rules about tokenization activities in China. And we have actually 2 ways in parallel. That means in mainland China, tokenization activities is strictly banned currently, but we allow strictly regulated cross-border activities using offshore structures, and we also use Hong Kong as some kind of experimental area about tokenization activities. So I'd like to know more about Hong Kong's update from Clinton. Thank you.
Clinton?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, you're right, and Hong Kong does tend to be a testing ground for for mainland China's, especially when it comes to securities. And whilst Hong Kong is taking steps forward when it comes to licensing and regulating virtual assets, so more along your lines of your cryptocurrency and those sorts of things, and we have introduced licensing for crypto exchanges and those sorts of things. When it comes to tokenization, I guess that's a bit broader, and it really depends on what it's being used for. So fundamentally in Hong Kong, there's no restriction whatsoever on tokenizing anything. So you can tokenize a building and real estate, which has been done, and you can sell that off. As long as what you are selling is regulated, though, that's really where it comes around. Is there enough protections around? Because I mean, one of the things of tokenization is it's somewhat the autonomy around it. So you don't have all that information that you would if it's just a buy and sell. So the issue is that when you enter into a regulated space such as securities, if those securities are being transferred and there's no knowledge as to who's actually being sold and bought to and where the funds are coming from, that's where Hong Kong is still pushing the boundaries of regulation, I guess. So yeah, so I think to put a short point on it, Joey, I think Hong Kong is definitely pushing the boundaries when it comes to tokenization, but when it comes to things such as securities, etc., we're probably a little bit behind.
Yeah.
Joey,
You.
does that help?
Thank you for yeah, it's very helpful. Thank you, Clinton.
So
Thank you.
hello everyone. I'm Patrick Dransfield, and
Hi, Patrick.
I'm with Moranis law firm, which is in Dubai, and I actually live in Abu Dhabi as it goes, but there we are. Not much to add. I'm a business development person, so whilst I'm very glad to have an introduction to tokenization, because it's a phrase I've read a lot but wasn't entirely sure of the definition, so that was very helpful. And we're doing quite a lot, just to pick up on what Clinton was saying, we're doing quite a lot of what is called VARA regulatory work here, and some Hong Kong and China companies have actually reached out to our firm. We have a particular expertise in it, having one of our lawyers, a Professor Abdul, who was in the first batch of VARA licenses, and their virtual asset regulatory licenses, they go, I think, mainly through DIFC. I'm going to stop there because, being an art historian and not a lawyer, I don't want to dig myself in too deeply, but the discussion's been very helpful, and we're seeing a reasonable pipeline of work from actually Asia and China in that space in Dubai. So I just thought I'd share that. Not too much on tokenization to what I'm aware of, but that doesn't mean it's not happening.
All right,
Yep.
thank you, Martin. Sorry, Clinton. So I'll just introduce Martin first. So, Martin, I don't know a huge amount about you, so can you introduce yourself, your firm, and then maybe any comments you wanted to add?
Okay, so thank you. We haven't met before. This is actually my first time. I'm from a Slovak law firm called Falad and Partners, and we are doing basically. We cover many sectors from business law, and we also had the opportunity to dig into crypto assets, but we haven't dealt with tokenization questions yet. But we are currently representing 10 clients in licensing proceedings in Slovak Republic before the National Bank of Slovakia.
I think, Martin, you've been a member for a couple of months now, haven't you?
Yes, we are quite a fresh member of ER Global from this year.
Yeah. Okay. And I think you've already started to make a few contacts, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay. All right. Clinton, sorry, I think I interrupted you slightly. I think you wanted to add some comments.
No, I was just going to, I guess, echo what Patrick had said, and that certainly from where we're sitting in Hong Kong, we are seeing that, especially certainly when it comes to crypto, maybe less so tokenization, but Dubai and UAE was certainly whether they were first mover or they're certainly they were certainly advertising us globally that they were the place to be if you wanted to do sort of crypto type business, etc. So yeah, I guess it was just echoing what Patrick said, is that certainly popular jurisdiction.
Yeah, but isn't I think Hong Kong's considered the same, right? In a similar vein to Singapore. I mean, they're kind of considered on the same level.
Yeah, we're a little bit late to the party, but then now we've got 2 more sets of licensing to come through, which will probably happen Q2-ish. It's just before LegCo now. Once that happens, then yeah, we'll have the full suite of regulatory frameworks, etc. So I think the UAE was probably a year ahead, first mover type advantage. And so as far as sort of international finance centers. But yeah, Hong Kong's, as we are doing of late, trying to catch up.
Yeah. And what is the comparison in the regulation between, because I'm not aware of the regulation in Hong Kong, between, say, MiCA in Europe and Hong Kong?
Hong Kong's still a lot more prescriptive, which is actually unusual for our regulatory system, which tends to be a bit more opaque. But substantially similar is the bottom line. There's already been some tweaks around the edges as to what what requirements are there. They're still trying to figure out. So a lot of what the regulation is around at the moment is only to what we call professional investors, as opposed to sort of the public in general, and it's very, very restricted when it comes to the public in general. So the mum and dad type stuff. But it's getting there, and obviously what happens is usually that the regulation's in place for the institutions and the professional investors, and then once they get comfortable with that regulatory framework, they then open it wider to the public. So we're probably a couple of years until all products will be available to the public.
Yeah. And Martin, in terms of MiCA for yourself as part of the European Union, what impact do you think that that's had in comparison to, say, slightly more unregulated markets?
Well, in my opinion, the MiCA had a big impact, especially in Slovakia, because basically what happened in Slovakia that was that crypto asset businesses were absolutely no regulated. It was very easy to establish a crypto business, and with the arrival of MiCA, many crypto business, or let's say entrepreneurs in Slovak Republic, they have ended their business activities because they find it very difficult to obtain a MiCA license. So, speaking from my experience and what I see in Slovakia, it had a huge impact on crypto business.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Sorry, I'll just add one thing on that, Ross. It was very interesting that originally a lot of all the crypto people were sort of saying, look, we encourage regulation because it gives everyone else the comfort that we are regulated, we're doing the right thing. But then all of a sudden, as Martin's just pointed out, once the regulations come in, they understand that they're not as freewheeling as they can be, and so they sort of all then pull back. So it's a double-edged sword sometimes.
Yeah, I think they've experienced the same thing in the US, haven't they? Because I think it was last autumn that they had the first lots of legislation, and everyone was like, "Oh, what's this going to mean?" And I think it's had the same impact.
Yeah.
I mean, it is still such a 15 years. I think that's still considered a new industry. So I think people are still kind of finding their feet in many respects, and I think that will continue. And Joey, just in terms of the regulation in China as compared to everywhere else, your own thoughts on that?
Well, I have to say that before the new regulation published this month, tokenization previously in China is in the gray zone. So we seldom talk about it because it's in the gray zone. But since this month, since the new regulation, it has been become regulated area, and so this is actually the first time that Chinese laws and regulations define tokenization, and we have a definition about the real world asset tokenization. I'd like to share the definition of tokenization here in Chinese regulations. It is about the activity of using encryption technology and distributed ledger technology to transform asset ownership and income rights into tokens for issuance and trading. So that means it is now a legal animal here in China, no longer a regulatory gray area. However, it is noteworthy that any tokenization activities, although with such new regulation, it is still prohibited in mainland China. But it's possible now for the Chinese enterprises to transform their assets here in mainland China to issue tokens outside of China. But we have to also apply for the government authorities' approval for that. So it's strictly important for us, for the Chinese lawyers, to work with Hong Kong lawyers when we transfer the assets in mainland China to Hong Kong's SPVs. So that's what I want to add. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Patrick, just coming back to you, any thoughts on what you've heard from the others?
Not really. It's been very helpful and very interesting, and the comparison and kind of China and Hong Kong, very interesting. I mean, stable coins is obviously totally separate topic, but that's going to be quite interesting, I think, as well. And I don't know. I mean, maybe Clinton has some information on this, but I get the impression that certain people who've been involved in the regulatory framework for stable coins, etc., in Hong Kong are quite positive about that. So that's something to watch, I think, and maybe a topic for another discussion.
Yeah. Hong Kong's just stablecoin regime's just gone through. Actually, they've just finished the first round of applications. I think there was, don't quote me, but I think it was something like 30 applications to sort of get approval to start issuing stablecoins. But I think they've only put 2 that have been approved into the sandbox, which is the 2 big banks here. I think they're the note issuing banks actually at this stage. So that's probably going to go live, I would have thought, maybe early 27. The sort of Hong Kong digital currency, so to speak. There has been a lot of hype about it, but at the end, it's at the end of the day, it's sort of the big end of town when we're talking about note issuers. So it's not necessarily generally accepted, amongst professionals, etc. at this point. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Martin, did you have any questions for our Asian friends or based in Asia?
I don't think I have, but it's very, very interesting to listen and get knowledge from other states.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, Joey, we'll get to meet in Singapore next month. You're coming to the conference, right?
Yeah, I will. I will go to Singapore and looking forward to meet you there and meet you all of you there.
Yeah. Well, I'll be there. Clinton, you'll be there, right? I think.
100%.
Yeah, you'll be there. Patrick, Martin, I don't think you've booked for Singapore, but
no, we're saving up our money for Lisbon.
Are you? Okay, very good. Yeah.
We'll be there.
Well, okay. Well, after Singapore is next month, the next major conference is in Vancouver in June. I mean, that will be heavily US attended, as you would expect. And then we will have our conference in Lisbon, our annual conference, which will be in October. And we have an early bird rate throughout the month of March. So 1st of March, you'll be able to buy tickets and gain a 10% discount. So Martin, I hope that we'll be able to get to meet you there in maybe Lisbon.
We are planning to attend in Lisbon. Oh, yes. I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
And then
when do you think there'll be the last time, or that's cut-off date for Vancouver to buy tickets?
When we sell all the tickets. When we sell all the tickets. We haven't really pushed it yet, so there's still a number of tickets left. All I would say is because it's a World Cup city, it's quite popular. But you'll be able to, you'll be able to get tickets to the last moment. What I mentioned. A few weeks before. I always keep a few back anyway, personally, and I can squeeze you in.
Cool. Thanks.
And then moving into 2027, we're almost there, Clinton, with our Hong Kong event. So we should have our on the road event will be in Hong Kong in March 2027. I can't remember exactly the date, but they haven't changed. And we're almost there with the Shangri-La, Clinton. We're sort of final contract stage. It always takes ages and ages, the last few bits, trying to negotiate and all the real finer details. But 99% there.
Oh, fantastic! And if it's 99% there, maybe I'll reach out to Lorna and just see if she wants hands with restaurants, events, etc., all the rest of it. But I'm sure
we will need all that.
Yeah,
all
cool.
that, video photographers, photographer, restaurants, trips.
Actually, on the subject of Hong Kong, I'm a stranded asset in Abu Dhabi. Actually, my wife, and therefore the family HQ, is in Hong Kong and has been for 30 odd years. So I know the place quite well. I've lived there until 3 years ago when I moved here. So any help on Hong Kong, very happy to assist. I used to also organize events there as well. So, I mean, that was a while ago, but any help I can give, happy to do so.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, good to know. Well, local knowledge is always king, obviously. But where were you from originally, Patrick? Where in England are you from?
Yeah, the north of England, actually. I was brought up near Liverpool. My parents are from Yorkshire, or were from Yorkshire, and I went to school in Lancaster. So that part of the world.
There's a slight burr, but it's very, very gentle from that part of the world.
I've been
very, very gentle.
I've been abroad for most of my life, so that's probably accounts for that.
Very good. All right. Well, look, I've had a nice session. Joey, any final comments or questions or anything you want to ask me or any of the others?
Not currently, because tokenization is kind of a little vague for me, because I have not yet. So I have to learn before I can come to some questions. Thank you.
That's all right. No problem. Well, the content from Erwin's presentation will be shared with everybody anyway. So if you've got any questions, I mean, we do have some real experts within the group, including Erwin. I think you can tell he was very knowledgeable. Patrick, any final comments from you? Anything you want to say?
No, I've enjoyed the session very much. It's been, very good. It's actually also similar to Martin. It's my first online session with Moranis. I think it's my first online session completely. So, very pleased to be part of the group, and very interested to know where Joey, where are you currently beaming in from? In Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen?
I'm in Shanghai. Welcome to Shanghai.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. It's been a while, but yeah, a city I know well. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Just on that, Patrick, I always like to keep the sessions relatively short, the online sessions, because I just think they make it much more interesting than smaller groups discussions. Nobody wants to be online longer than an hour. I absolutely know that, because I spent half my life on Zoom and Teams, as I'm sure you do. So I like to keep it short and sweet. Martin, any final comments from you?
No, thank you. I've enjoyed the session really much too, as Patrick said.
Okay, good. And Clinton, just a final nod from you?
Yeah, well, ditto. Thanks very much, all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Stay in touch. Cheers.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.